Hi, and welcome to another edition of Newsmakers. I'm Jerry Roberts. It is Thursday, March 17th. Happy St. Patrick's Day, particularly to Nick. And we're off to the Fresno Bureau tomorrow, so we're recording a day early. I want to welcome our special Mansplaining panel, executive editor of the Santa Barbara Independent, Nick Welsh, and Josh Molina, the Joe Rogan of Santa Barbara. Thanks, fellas, for joining us. Quickly on COVID, everybody's giving themselves high fives, touchdown dance over there at the Board of Supervisors. We got cruise ships coming. Okay, but that BA2 variant is raging in Europe and in China, apparently. So watch out, because I think there may be another wave coming. Good time to buy at-home tests because they're still available, so stock up. Here's a scary statistic for you. In America, there are 28% of adults are fully vaccinated and boosted. 28%.
That's all.
Yeah, in Europe, it's well over 70, 80%. So I don't think we're done. I don't think it's done with us yet. All right. And I do also want to recommend everybody read my blindingly insightful piece in the Montecito Journal about the big award that was given to the RingNet committee there, primarily because I actually say something nice about Das Williams in there. So it is Lent. Nick has suggested I give up Das bashing for Lent, so I'm giving it a try. All right, on to other things. Nick, you were AWOL last week, so we missed your reporting on the Exxon situation. Of course, their plant in Goleta has been shut down since the Plains All-American oil spill, and they were seeking permission, to truck oil to Kern County before the Board of Supervisors. Good luck.
Right. So Exxon is up on the Gaviota Coast with Las Flores Canyon, has a major plant there. It has 3 offshore platforms from which it's pumping. And, since 2015, when the Plains oil spill, the Plains All-American pipeline ruptured, Exxon, like a lot of the people up on the Gaviota Coast, was cut off from ability to get its oil to market. And so they have come to the Board of Supervisors saying, hey, until we get the pipeline rebuilt, which they're in the process of trying to get permits for, they'd like to be able to truck, the oil to Kern County. And initially, it looks like it may not be that challenging prospect because they would just take it up to a facility in San Maria, the Phillips 66 plant there. But Phillips, about a year ago, said, no, we're out of the oil business. We're only going to do biofuels. We're going green. So all of a sudden, Exxon had the rug pulled out from under by yet another oil company and had to go to Kern County. And the roads to Kern County are very narrow. It's a 2-lane highway. There's a lot of switchbacks, very steep grades. It's sort
a lot of road rage if you're behind some truck too.
Yeah, and if you start going through the Cuyama Valley, it is sort of bumper to bumper trucks, and so it really was sort of. The environmental analysis was that no matter how much safety precautions you took, the risk of an oil spill, of a truck falling or tipping over and the oil getting into the waterways, you just couldn't mitigate it.
Which in fact had happened, as it
Well, in fact, while they were working on the environmental analysis, and at that time the environmental analysis was saying, don't worry, it's such a remote idea, it will never happen. We don't have to worry about it. We can mitigate it down.
Well, once every 17 years.
Once every 52 years in one condition, once every 17 in another. Boom. Some poor schmo coming from Kern County forgot to tap the brakes as he was coming down the hill and tapped in too hard because he was losing control. Truck spills, 4,500 gallons go into the creek, Cuyama River.
So basically, the board turned him down
3-2.
with
So
the,
really, all that blah, 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 I just said, Exxon, the plug has been pulled on Exxon. The world's biggest, baddest oil company has had the plug pulled on it, really for the foreseeable future until the Plains All American Pipeline can ever get rebuilt. In fact, who knows if that's ever going to happen? And so really, we don't know what's going to happen to Exxon. And I assume that what they're going to do is spend a lot of time in court saying that the board abused its discretion.
oh,
But I was really struck. I don't know if you watched it, Josh, but really how hard they didn't try. You know, one of the issues that was there, aside from the road safety, was greenhouse gas emissions. And the amount of extra greenhouse gases that are going to be emitted because of the trucking proposal is about 10 times what the county's action threshold is. They offered $1 million in sort of local projects, and then they buy offsets on some, you know, global offset market. Now, $1 million is what the city council just found in its change drawer 2 weeks ago from ARPA funds. So $1 million sounds like a lot to you or me, but you know, for Exxon and trying to come up with projects, it's like nothing. There are so many things that they could have said, here we want to do, and really made it hard for the supervisors to say no, but they really underwhelmed themselves and everybody else.
well, I mean, they probably saw the handwriting on the
Yeah.
wall. Yeah. And the other thing, of course, Nick, which maybe you can explain this next week, of why we're paying $6 a gallon for gas and oil is under $100 a barrel. But be that as it may, Josh was all over this week because Josh is an electric car guy. I don't know if you know that, and he filed a. How did you end up doing some guy stole a car? How does that come on your?
How did you actually write a breaking news story?
But what? Why was that?
How did I actually write a breaking news story?
Yes.
What is this? 2001? Yeah. I got a tip, and I
got a tip. I like that.
Called the police department and found out what was going on and
All
wrote
right.
it up. That's
all.
all.
Right, but don't miss it. Don't miss it. And then check back for more details on that one. So, Josh,
Hey, I made a call before 9 o'clock at night. You should be proud of me. You know.
No, that's good. The school board took up this awful case, which we've talked about the last 2 weeks, where some kid got George Floyd reenacted on his body, and had sort of a broader report about racism or racist incidents that have been going on. It sounded like it was a pretty lively meeting. What was the outcome?
Well, the outcome was a lot of talking. There was not scheduled to be any formal action, but the meeting was really sad. It was very depressing. The outcome was, I think, the board left there feeling really attacked and criticized and ashamed. They listened to a lot of public comment that criticized their lack of action and their unwillingness to do enough to draw attention to anti-Blackness in the district. And so the tone of the meeting was pretty harsh. Many people spoke. They were unhappy with Fran Wagnick's report. They were unhappy with the board. They felt as though the board was once again acting surprised and acting as though they're going to do something now. And I think the sentiment of the public, at least the ones who called in, was, why are we still here? Why are you still acting like you're shocked to know that there's racism in schools? Why are you giving a report?
Well, Fran's report, I don't know if it was your story or June's story, it said that there have been, 11 incidents in the last year or something?
Yeah, so the report attempted to summarize all of the different instances that they were aware of in terms of racist acts on campus. There were some parents who also called in about a TikTok video That was news to me. I didn't heard anything about that other than what they said in the meeting, but several other Black children were attacked on TikTok. And so they called in and said, why is this happening? And this sounded like it was recent, like it was after the other incident. So it was a meeting where, once again, the school board members were, most of them, Wendy Sims Moten was the exception. Most of them just sort of were quiet and said they're going to change.
What were the people asking the board to do that the district's not doing?
Well, to do more than just sort of act surprised. They're asking them to specifically address anti-Blackness in the schools. And one of the criticisms was in Fran Wagnick's report. She only mentioned anti-Blackness once, although she did speak it, I think 3 or 4 times when she spoke. In other words, talking about anti-bias in the generic sense is one thing, but they need to be specific. Many of these activists are saying we need to, or the school board needs to specifically do more to make Black children feel safe in the schools. And instead of acting surprised and saying they're going to set forth all of these policies once an incident happens, they want to see results and they want to see action and they want to see it yesterday. They do have a point. It seems like the school board's always acting surprised every time these things come up, and they are acting as though it's the first time they've ever heard of it. So,
although, I was surprised by Kate Ford's comment that, how much racism there is in Santa Barbara. I can't remember the exact quote, but I do know that I remember being sort of surprised by the sweeping nature of her words.
I think I quoted her saying there are racists everywhere in Santa Barbara. And so I think, and her point was, there's only so much the school district can do. People need to acknowledge, this is her words, that racism is a choice. And until they start to do that, there's only so much the district can do. That was the point she was trying to make. The underlying theme was defensiveness, okay? And, and I've talked about this in reporting about COVID and a variety of issues, that the school board, more so than most bodies that I have covered, has a collective defensiveness that every criticism of them, they take really personally, as though they're being attacked as individuals. And that was the tone of this meeting, to the point where Wendy Sims Moten was just calling it out. And she said, we need to stop sounding defensive. We need to stop defending ourselves. We need to stop saying this is why and trying to explain. We just need to hear. And she said that to Fran Wagnick in the meeting, which was very shocking. She said, even when you say that, you sound defensive. And so that was interesting. I think the politics of this, are not as important as fixing the issue, but the politics of this was watching Wendy Sims Moten essentially be the chair of that body. Rose Munoz is the chair on paper, on print, but there hasn't been a real leader on that board since Kate Ford stepped down, and Wendy really stepped up and tried to take the lead and sort of say, hey, this has to stop. We've got to change. Now they're going to do a racial climate assessment. Originally, the board wanted to do an RFP to have somebody come in and take a look at these issues. And Wendy said, no, we're not there yet. We need to do an assessment of the problem. How bad is this problem? So
yeah, I mean, that was my question, reading your story and June's story. There's this report out that says there's 12 incidents. We've heard the details of one. Now we've heard a little bit about the TikTok. What are the other incidents? So, and what happened? Who did it happen to? Do we have any sense of what the school board is doing or what the schools are doing when these incidents occur? How do they respond? What kind of steps are taken? I mean, it's not just enough to say off with your head to the kid, but like, how do you actually have a teaching moment or a collaborative moment where people have to deal with it at the school level, or don't they?
All right, so so they're gonna do this, what, survey or they're gonna,
They're gonna do a RFP for an assessment of the racial climate and get data, and then come back to the board and then see how best to use that data. It's very complicated. It isn't, one of the things was having the Latinx community and educate the Latinx community about racial biases they may have toward Black people. That's part of the discussion. It's not super overt, it's not, no one's out
although it
there.
apparently was in this case.
In this case, yeah, it was the George Floyd reenactment. It was, Latinx students that were
So
involved.
there's some pressure on the school district to look at this issue from multiple layers and multiple perspectives, and try to educate many people of color on anti-Blackness in the school district. So it's very, it's a little bit complicated, and the school board is trying to figure it out in real time, and they're sort of frozen. One final point, Hilda Maldonado got a 1-year contract extension.
As well she should.
Notwithstanding, maybe because of your cheerleading for
As
her.
well she should.
You really changed, Jerry. Boy,
Somebody-
that was a
somebody-
flip-flop.
somebody has
I'm gonna
to
follow the
counter
money, Jerry. I'm gonna see what happened.
Somebody has to counter your chronic negativity about Hilda. All right, Nick, speaking of chronicle negativity, criminal justice reform, my favorite issue. The 4 departments, the DA, the sheriff, the public defender, and probation, have been involved in this ongoing project to kind of figure out how to save money, I guess, on jailing people and other things. But it kind of got overshadowed a little bit by this awful case that happened with some guy who had just been released from county jail with an ankle monitor, who killed a homeless woman. Talk about both of those things and how they're connected.
And they were connected because they were both really brought to the fore on Tuesday. The killing or the murder took place about 2:30 in the morning, I think, on Sunday morning, or this woman, she was in her 50s, and she'd been on the streets for a long time, and she slept regularly down at Mountain Air Sports. And that was her place, and she was sleeping, and this guy, Gabriel Jose Zepeda, 46 years old, he was released from county jail on a charge of residential burglary, which was basically breaking into La Arcada, and maybe stealing something or maybe trying to sleep there, depending on who you believe. But he let a couple of his buddies in with him at 6 in the morning, and he has a long history of stalking and violating restraining orders where his ex-wife is concerned. And he got what they call a waiver that he had pled no contest. He was going to be sentenced in April. And they said, tell you what, dude, we're going to let you out on a waiver, but you have to show up for your hearing in April, or we're going to throw the book at you. They had given him a deal. The reason they gave him a waiver is because he had informed them that his grandmother up in Santa Maria was dying, and he needed to go up there and be able to see his grandmother for one last time. That was the pitch and why that was granted. Anyway, he's clearly a very troubled guy, and he marches down the street and sees this woman, tries to rob her, and strangles her.
And then Andy, our friend Andy Caldwell, who I have a feeling voted against Proposition 47, I'm going to take a wild guess, brought this case before the Soups in the context of this hearing.
Right. It was he filed it in the staff, he filed it as a comment to the board. And on the table was this very sort of in the weeds, granular look at how these four departments that consume collectively 23% of the county's budget, how they are rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic in order so that as few as people as necessary go to jail, and as many people who can be diverted without compromising public safety are diverted. And there is a sense, normally our jail has about 950 people in it, and during COVID we got down to about 650. So people thought, oh my God, we don't have to lock so many people up. We can save a lot of money. We can save a lot of lives and not compromise public safety.
Well, people accepting Sheriff Bill Brown and current District Attorney Joyce Dudley.
That is true, but even North County Supervisors Bob Nelson and Steve Avenino are open to the idea that the Rubik's Cube can be rearranged better, and that we can divert more people than we are
as a cost-saving measure.
Well, as a cost-saving and as a justice-saving issue. And it really is how many people do you have to lock up to be safe? So Andy Caldwell,
One more than they did anyway.
Well, in this case, it was interesting. So Andy throws this Molotov cocktail out there. Look, guy's on an ankle bracelet. He was not part of any of these programs. He had basically pled no contest. He was going to get sentenced. It was sort of the offense for which he was charged was barely shoplifting.
But the question, well, here's my question. Would it have been a felony before Proposition 47? Was it 900? No.
No. I mean, this was, there's a dispute whether he stole anything or not. He broke into La Arcada, and when the police found him, he looked like he was trying to sleep. Now the cops say he was feigning. But so that's what it was. It wasn't like he went into Thrifty Jr. or Rite Aid and stole $950 worth of food.
We're going to talk about Rite Aid in just a moment. Nice transition.
So it's one of those cases. I mean, John Savernock, who's going to be our next district attorney, who is hardly Mr. Soft on Crime and let's all sing Kumbaya. I mean, he got up there and said, look, I want to tell you something. This is a horrible case. It's a horrific killing. But none of these programs that Andy Caldwell likes to wet his pants about were at all involved in this guy's release.
Well, in fact, he said if we could, as I understood your story, if we could make progress in this with these reforms, then we would have more time to pay, or more attention to be paid to cases such as this.
He said that, and so did a retired judge named Cheryl Ellsworth from Riverside County, who the county has hired to sort of help shepherd this process of how do we reconfigure the good ship Lollipop. She was saying, hey, if you get rid of the low-lying fruit and the non-serious offenders, or the people who are mentally ill, or the people who could be helped in a diversion program, and focus on the scary people, the people who are prone toward violence. Right now, the prosecutors and the public defenders and law enforcement are overwhelmed, and dangerous cases are going to get lost in the shuffle. That just is going to happen. And I've talked to people in the prosecution's office. They say, look, this is a horrific thing, but what are we going to do? We're going to lock this guy up for life? I mean, here's a guy he has.
Maybe now, huh?
No, well, for now, yeah, he won't be getting out. I mean, I understand he's confessed to it. I don't think it's even going to go to trial, but we'll see.
All right. So onward with the criminal justice reform, and hopefully they will be able to save some money and address some of these issues. But you mentioned Rite Aid. Josh, yet another scoop in a week when you got stomped on Chick-fil-A by Jade Martinez Pogue. But we don't have to talk about that one. But Rite Aid is closing on
At least I'm in the game, Jerry.
You'll always have the Tesla, Josh. The Rite Aid thing's a big surprise, no?
Yeah, and if we're talking about scoops, John Palmentary is the one who broke that story on his
okay.
Instagram. But yeah, so it was there, and then it was closed up shop. And if you look through the windows, there's not a lot on the shelves. Clearly, they're not coming back. I did get a statement from Rite Aid, and they said that generic statement. They decided last Q3 of last year they were going to close 2% or something of their stores. And
But
this was one of
63 outlets, right?
yeah, and this was one of them. So to them, it's just another store. They have others. That store's been around a long time in various formats. It was Thrifty before that, and it's one of the long-lasting downtown drugstores for all types of people to go to. Accessible, affordable. People can you can go get a scoop of ice cream on a cone. You can go there to get your prescriptions. You can send money through wire transfer. It was a place where people would go, like your sort of community downtown hub. Homeless people use that store, low income people would use that store, and it was a big service. So what does this mean? It's another vacant store for a big one on State Street. And I don't know what's going to happen. I was told that Rite Aid just upped and left. They were gone, and now the owners, they didn't kick them out or anything. Now they're marketing it and they're looking for somebody else. But it's right next to Sur La Table, and it's like another vacant store. So it's just kind of another block there. That's
In a real central.
It's interesting. Jean Yamamura wrote a story for us about that, and she talked with the real estate broker, and basically the numbers in terms of pharmaceutical sales and prescription revenues were way low at this outfit. It was really underperforming compared to other Rite Aids around town. We have a CVS up the street. We've got a CVS other places downtown. It was really, you mentioned the ice cream. It was the best deal in town for ice cream.
Oh, absolutely.
By a lot, the ice cream was decent, and you didn't have to get a mortgage to buy it like you have to at other places in town. It was a wonderful ice cream deal, but the place was getting really sketchy. It was sort of shoplifters target number one. It was a attractive nuisance. When you talk about the change of the definition of felony, people would go in there, and if you stole under $950, you were worth your good. You were good, and that was a major target for shoplifting. The store employees were told, do not try to apprehend anybody, don't engage. So they were just getting hammered. And it was sort of, it was kind of a rough, and if it was a place where, street people like to hang out, but it was huge. So like you said, Josh, it's a big space. What do you fill it with? Bowling alleys? Who knows what?
Housing, build more housing. Yeah.
What's funny is when you try to get a number for like how big the space was, they tell you somewhere between 7,000 and 14,000 square feet, which is like asking how tall is somebody? Somewhere between 6 and 12 feet tall. It's big, and it will be a hard hole to fill.
Well, no doubt the long-range planning committee for the future of State Street will look askance at this, and they'll have an answer in 5 or 6 years, I'm sure. All right, let's talk about politics a little bit. Josh, I can't remember if we talked about Gabe Escobedo getting out of the assembly race once Mike Stoker got in. Really, the ballot, we got one more day for a couple of these races, but it looks like the highlight, and I use that lightly, is going to be teacher Christy Lozano running against Susan Salcido for county superintendent of schools, which hopefully the first thing we can do is figure out what the county superintendent of schools does, but talk about
Spelling
Christy
bees.
Lozano. Who is she and why do we care about that race?
Christy Lozano has gotten a lot of attention in conservative circles in recent weeks. She has been very critical of the school district and their sex education curriculum. And I think as it relates to some of the other critical race theory topics that have come up. And she did this interview with Fox News, and she posted a whole bunch of stuff on her YouTube channel about what teachers can access through a password protected wall in terms of what they're asked to consider teaching students. So she's become sort of this, Nick will say this a lot better than I will, but she's become sort of this emblem, this symbol of sort of the voice, the choice of the conservatives on the ballot this time around. And they're getting behind her. I don't know why she's running for superintendent of schools, quite honestly. I had heard she was going to run for school board.
He would have had
that's a way
chance.
better position. It's a much more winnable position, depending on where she lives. But anyway, she's got a lot of momentum behind her. Conservatives are really behind her, and they see her as sort of the one they're going to put up to make a difference. As a practical matter, you're going to unseat an incumbent in a district that is Democratic, and Starshine, she wrote a takedown of Christie, and I don't know, we'll see how that one goes. But
no, I mean, I think that Christie is sort of the Joan of Arc of the conservative right, the culturally besieged conservatives, and the district that she should run for is county-wide, isn't it? So
Yes.
I just assumed that her thinking was, if I try to run for school board down here, I'm going to get hammered. I don't have a chance because it's way too liberal. But if I can bring in the more conservative voters up in north, and say I may have a shot. Either way, I think she is, probably spitting in the wind, but it doesn't matter because it really is the message. And it's an opportunity for this constituency to, make its case. Schools are out of control.
And we also have our old friend Elrod McClern, who ran for school board last time with kind of the same constituency, running against Joe Holland, who's, how many words does it take to talk about Joe Holland's title? I mean, he's everything but the coroner. But anyway, talk about another strange one. Do you have any insight about that, Josh or Nick, or is that, have I already said too much?
I had heard that Elrod was appointed to the Goleta Planning Commission. It was Roger Acevez's pick, so he has gained a little bit in influence since he ran for Santa Barbara School Board. Again, you're not going to beat Joe Holland. And if you're going to beat Joe Holland, you're going to have to be somebody who's got an incredible name, who raises a ton of money. And I just think it's fascinating that people with moral views think that somehow that translates into political victory on election day. And as we know, Jerry, money, message, and organization is what matters. So if you're going to outraise Joe Holland, okay, and if you're going to have a whole bunch of people knocking on doors, that's even a different race because his name recognition is so strong.
Well, and the other thing, I mean, there's a lot of counties where what Joe Holland does is not an elected office. I mean, being the voter register.
Well, I think you just put your finger on it. I mean, he's the elections guy, and what are the conservatives across the country going up against? They're going after the elections offices. Because why? Because the elections offices are opening things up to voters who shouldn't be opened up to, with that all-mail ballot and things like that. So, Joe Holland's, seat has now become a lightning rod seat across the country. Elections officials are under fire. And again, the conservative right has been really making a point of going after them. I don't think, Elrod, I have to say, was one of the more presentable, candidates of the sort of disaffected, alienated right. When he ran for the school board last time, but he burns a little hot and he's a little, he doesn't smile. And I think if you're going to be like a harsh conservative, smiling helps. And maybe just smiling helps if you're going to be a politician. But, I think, again, is Elrod upset about how people are being assessed? Does he think Ty Warner is being charged too much for his property taxes? I kind of doubt that's a big issue to him.
Yeah, you're probably right. No, that's an excellent point. And then our friend Mike Stoker was not happy, particularly with you, Josh, last week in our discussion of the assembly race, because he thinks that we don't understand North County, as he put it. And that many of the Democrats in North County are going to vote for him because they're essentially conservatives. But I finally saw the partisan breakdown of this assembly district, and it's 51% Democratic, 21% Republican. 20% decline to state. So he's going to have to win a lot of Democrats, is all I got to say, to beat Greg Hart.
Well, Jerry, those blue dog Democrats, they're just all around us, and they're going to vote for Mike Stoker. And I mean, this is
that, it's hard to believe, but that phrase comes from the 90s, 30 years ago, which even
I don't understand it. I don't know why conservatives think that they can flip the registration and win these big seats when they don't organize very well. This is not a criticism of, if you're a Republican, great. This is about organization. Like, you've got to build new leaders, and Mike Stoker is going to take on Greg Hart. Mike Stoker. There's nobody else.
One time we had Brooks Firestone, a conservative. He was a moderate to liberal Republican who represented us in Sacramento. Those days are long gone. And
both in terms of the registration and in terms of that kind of Republican, they all been driven out of the party.
They've all been driven out of the party. I think a Steve Lavanino, if he were to have run as a Republican, would have had a much better shot. Back in the East Coast, they have this bug called the cicada. It comes out every 17 years. And it comes out every 17 years and has sex and then goes off and dies in mass numbers. And it sort of reminds me of Mike Stoker's political career. I think that, I don't know how many years it's been since Mike has run, but, he was appointed by Trump administration to be the Western Regional Director of the EPA. He was fired for it. He said because he was too good at reaching across the aisle and working with the likes of Nancy Pelosi and things like that. But it is not forgotten by many Democrats here that Mike Stoker was the one who led the chant, "Lock her up," in the 2016 Republican convention about Hillary Clinton. I think he's going to have a steep uphill climb in this one. And Mike, he is a hard guy not to like, but he is also a hard guy not to get worn out by. And I think that this one, he may have worn out his welcome. It's been a long time.
All right. Well, we got to wrap it up. Nick, don't miss Nick's column this week where he bemoans. Well, no, he's in favor of cruise ships. It's me who's bemoaning the return of cruise ships. But then pivots neatly, Josh, you'll like this, to housing, and suggest that Chancellor Henry Yang can solve all of his problems out there. He doesn't need Dormzilla. He can just put him on cruise ships, which is a really, really good idea. And then who you got coming on the podcast there, Mr. Rogan?
Well, I interviewed Peter Lewis this week, who's a developer.
What is that? I haven't seen it yet.
It was great. It was almost as good as your Mike Stoker metaphor a couple of minutes ago, which better make the headline of your story, Jerry. Reminding us all why
Nick says
Welsh
Stoker
is-
has
well,
sex every 17 years.
Yeah.
Peter Lewis, I'll change the subject for you, Nick, there. Okay, no.
Thank you.
Peter Lewis is the developer behind a very dense 80-unit project on the parking lot behind Staples on the 400 block, the old Staples building. They're doing stacked parking. These are small units, and he's got an interesting story, and he's really well liked. He's on the State Street Committee. He's not a developer that is somebody who's sort of considered the enemy like some other developers at City Hall. So he talks about his vision, the future, State Street. It's a good one, Jerry. I'm surprised you don't have guests like this, on your show. But
Well,
that's a-
I've kind of sworn off my one-on-ones for a while until, unless there's some big news value, like when I stomped you on Joyce Dudley.
What are you I was deluged with feedback saying you got to clean up Jerry's mess. So I had to do that, Jerry. I mean, come on,
yeah, okay. All right, Nick Welsh, Josh Molina, thank you, I guess. And we'll see you next time on Newsmakers.